What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and we have some breaking news here from yesterday. If you didn't see it, or maybe if you did saw it, the Pac-12 is in trouble. The Pac-12, I think, is officially not going to be a conference next year in 2024. We've had some, conference changes and everything like that. Some new teams now gone from the Pac-12. We had just one team gone from the Pac-12, this season. And then last year, obviously, USC and UCLA are heading to the Big Ten. But now the Big 12 and the Big Ten is shaping up to be some big conferences next year. I mean, if you look at the Big 12, I mean, they're going to have probably like 16 teams next year. I mean, and also you look at the Big Ten, they're going to have more than 14 teams next year. So it's a lot of breaking news from yesterday. And normally I don't post videos on Saturdays, but I'm going to give you my thoughts about these moves. The Pac-12 teams now moving on to the Big 12 or the Big Ten. So yeah, the news came out yesterday, and I was really shocked to hear about it. It looks like the Pac-12 is not going to be a Power 5 conference anymore just because of all the departures and everything. And, it's really interesting to see what happens next year in 2024. I mean, really interesting to see what's going to happen next year. But, like I said, I don't post videos on Saturdays. I'm just going to give you a reaction to this one. And before I start my reaction, I just want to say those top 10 videos won't continue for week by week. I'm going to just, change things up a little bit here for the channel. And, maybe I can go without a post probably for a while, but I just don't really feel comfortable at doing that. I really like posting every video every day, but I thought about a video suggestion, probably for tomorrow, maybe Monday. I might probably post I might rank all my Power 5 teams from 1 through 69, perhaps. So I think that's how we'll do it this year, or maybe like 1 through 70, because there's a lot of Power 5 teams this year. But let's get right into my reaction here. So, obviously, the Pac-12, conference, there was a lot of news yesterday about Oregon and Washington going to the Big Ten, and, it would be finalized probably that same night. So, and it is official, but before we get into that story, obviously the Big 12 is adding some new teams, and obviously when you look at the Big 12 for next year, they're going to add Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah, and we already knew that Colorado was already a member of the Big 12 for next year. I gave you my reaction to that, move for Colorado, but I didn't think it was a good move for Colorado. Now it's a big move here for Arizona State and Arizona and Utah. You look at Utah, they've been the top team now for the last couple years in the Pac-12. I'm just kind of, shocked that they would leave the, Pac-12 to go to the Big 12. I mean, obviously the Big 12 is stacked already with, 12 teams for next year, because Texas and Oklahoma are leaving to go to the SEC next year. And then, now you got newcomers joining in. You already had newcomers joining in for this season with UCF, and, you had Cincinnati in there, BYU, and Houston. So now they're adding 3 more members, and it's the Pac-12 teams. Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah. Maybe Arizona and Arizona State are kind of in that same thing. They want to continue the rivalry, but I just wonder how this thing is going to shape out to be. I just wonder how the Big 12 schedules are going to look. And obviously, I think it's going to be no divisions next year in the Big 12. I mean, we haven't had divisions, I think, in years in the Big 12. So, I mean, this is really shocking. This is really shocking to see, but, maybe it's a great move for these Pac-12 teams with Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State. I didn't agree with Colorado going to the Big 12 next year, but, I mean, it seems like it's kind of like a right move now because, I mean, obviously the Pac-12 is not going to be there anymore, but, they don't have to play the top 2 teams in the Pac-12 next year either, so these 4 teams are now joining the Big 12 out of the Pac-12. It's Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado. So you got 4 newcomers once again coming next year to the Big 12. I mean, you had Houston, UCF, Cincinnati, and BYU to the Big 12 this season, and then you got 4 newcomers now. I mean, that makes 18 teams, if, Texas and Oklahoma were to stay next year, but it makes it overall, really interesting to see what happens as they go through the season for next year. But there's going to be, I think 16 teams next year in the Big 12, so I'm just kind of curious to see how this will play out. So Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado are all the Pac-12 teams that are heading to the Big 12 next season in 2024. Now let's get to the big story here for the Big 10. We got Washington, USC, Oregon, and UCLA all heading to the Big Ten next season. This is really shocking. I mean, this is really interesting to see what happens. When I saw the news yesterday that Washington and Oregon were potentially going to be members of the Big Ten, I just couldn't believe it. I really didn't believe it at first, but now I do believe it. So, I mean, I think people kind of disagree with this, move for Washington and Oregon because pretty much the Pac-12 is over. The Pac-12 is potentially over now with all four of these teams going to the Big Ten next year. I mean, we already saw that USC and UCLA were heading to the Big Ten next year, but, we thought Washington and Oregon would run the table in the Pac-12 in 2024, but now it doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. So Washington and Oregon, I mean, with this kind of move, you got to wonder what this means for the Pac-12. I mean, it really is a big move. We thought Colorado was just a, move and everything, but now it's a big move. Washington and Oregon now heading to the Big Ten, and I think the Pac-12 is officially over. I think it's officially over. You don't have any other teams, that could really, run the table in that Pac-12 conference, unless they add, maybe San Diego State and Colorado State. But I thought that's a move that they would do next year. With USC and UCLA gone for 2024, they would add like two newcomers in there. Maybe it was going to be Colorado State or maybe it was going to be San Diego State, but San Diego State kept declining that. So, I mean, I was kind of, shocked that San Diego State did not accept, the invitation and everything. So, USC, Washington, and Oregon, UCLA are all heading to the Big Ten next year. I'm just kind of curious to see how this plays out. We've seen Oregon and Washington play, Big Ten teams in the regular season, and they haven't really done so good. Washington, I know, defeated Michigan State, but Michigan State was terrible last year. And then obviously Oregon, they beat Ohio State a couple years ago in 2021 in the regular season. So, I mean, yeah, they've had some really good ups and downs with the Big Ten, but I just don't think this is a great move for Washington and Oregon. USC and UCLA, on the other hand, I really didn't think it was going to be a big disagreement, with everything coming up for the Pac-12. I mean, you obviously have Washington, Oregon still as the top teams in the Pac-12, and then you, of course, got Utah. But now Utah is gone to the Big 12, so, I mean, yeah, this is the end of the Pac-12. I mean, all you have left is Washington State in there. You got Oregon State in there as well, and I'm not sure what other teams are in there. You got Stanford as well, so I mean, yeah, this is the end of the Pac-12. I mean, it's really the end of the Pac-12, I believe, and I think they're not going to have a Pac-12 next year. I just wonder where Washington State's going to go. I wonder if they're going to go to the, maybe they'll go to the ACC next year, but I think they're going to probably go, and you also have Cal in there as well. So, I mean, I just wonder if Cal's going to go to the Big 12. I mean, that's kind of, a good conference for them. And then, of course, the Big 10, I think it's really fine where it's at. I mean, there's going to be a lot of Big 10 teams next year. I mean, I think there's going to be 18 teams in the Big 10 next year, unless somebody leaves in the Big 10. Like, for example, maybe Rutgers will leave next year, but you never know. So, I mean, yeah, this is really shocking news from yesterday. I mean, obviously, the Pac-12 is over. I mean, the Pac-12, I think, is officially over for college football. There's not going to be there's not going to be a fifth Power 5 conference anymore. I mean, there's not going to be any more Pac-12 next year either. Not a Pac-12 champion either. So I'm just kind of curious. What are your guys' thoughts on these changes? What do you think about Washington and Oregon going to the Big 10 now? And what do you think about Utah, Arizona State, and Arizona going to the Big 12 next year? This is just breaking news. Let me guys know what you think about these, changes. And again, stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.